Hey everybody, I hope you all are doing well and welcome back to Whiskey Wonders. And today we are doing probably one of the most epic hauls we're going to do this year, at least so far, because we have some real heavy hitter whiskeys from Buffalo Trace. So things like E.H. Taylor Barrel Proofs, Blanton's Minis, Japanese whiskeys from Suntory, so think Yamazaki 18s and Yamazaki 12s, and really some interesting specialty whiskeys that are new and out from Jack Daniels, and so much more. So today we are doing our May 2023 haul where we look at bottles that we got from Total Wine, we look at bottles we got from Costco, we look at bottles that we got from wherever we got, and also some other bottles we didn't get to highlight throughout the month. And we're going to talk about what we paid for them, where we got them from, and whether or not they were worth picking up. Now, if you like these videos, if you like the Wanders, if you like the hauls, the reviews, the unbottlings, the unboxings, and really all the amazing stuff we got cooking up for you, and we have tons of amazing stuff cooking up for you, don't forget to like and subscribe because one, it does really help the channel to grow and we are super duper thankful for that. But also you get notifications when our newest videos come out on Sundays and sometimes at whatever point in between when they do. All right, now let's get down to the video. Now, before we get to this most epic of hauls, and while I'm starting to get a little warmed up here, and hopefully you are too, let's do today's whiskey check. And in fact, I'm going to be drinking something that I kind of poo-pooed early on. I stubbed my nose up at, and I'm willing to give a second crack at it. Let's try. We're going to be enjoying this Campfire High West whiskey, where it's like a blend of bourbon and scotch together. Doesn't seem like a good idea. It didn't seem like a good idea at the time, but you know what? I'm willing to give it a second chance. So let's try this out, see if we can get a pop. Hey, there's one thing they got right. They got the pop right. Get a glass and get some juice for myself. Oh, yeah. All right, and to whiskey. Because honestly, you can never drink too much of it. You can only really just drink it too fast. Cheers. I don't get it. Still don't get it. Still don't get it. Not bad, but I don't get it. All right, so let's get today started off with one of the whiskeys that we actually didn't get to put into any of the Wanders or the reviews or anything from this month. We just didn't have enough space for it, and sometimes that happens. But I am super glad that we got it and excited to have it, which is this Old Forester Single Barrel, Barrel Strength, Barrel Select by Costco Queens Creek. Man, that's a mouthful. You guys don't know how many times I had to try that one. So the Old Forester in general is another one of those bourbon lines that we really want to jump into, and we're about to jump into. If you saw some of the previous ones from the holidays, we got the holiday box set, so we can try a bunch of them at once. But they get a lot of buzz online, and they've been around for quite some time with some gaps in their resume. And they have a pretty large variety of whiskey that's available in that kind of low to mid-range prices, which I do like. I don't think they have a ton of high-end stuff that's available, but that's okay as well. This one specifically is on the higher end of those mid-range products that Old Forester offers because it is a single barrel, first of all. Second of all, because it is barrel strength, which means it is a higher range ABV than a lot of the other Old Foresters that you can find on the shelf. And tertiarily, number three, because it was hand-selected by the good people at Costco Queens Creek. And I don't know if you've met anyone from Queens Creek at that Costco, but just looking at them, I think they know what they're doing. So we got this one at the Costco Queens Creek grand opening for $59.99. It is ABV'd at, let's see here, 64.25% ABV that you can see right there. So that is a 128.5 proof. Put some hair on your chest. It doesn't have an age statement on it though, but like Shakespeare said, what's in an age, right? So either way, I am really glad to have gotten this one. They seem to go pretty quick, so it'll be a great addition to the collection on the Old Forester side, even though we haven't really started going down that path. But when we do, we'll be ready to kind of top it off with the Old Forester Costco Barrel Select Single Barrel Barrel Strength. So that's Old Forester Single Barrel. All right, so next up are a pair of whiskeys that we also got at the Costco Queens Creek grand opening. And I think we saw both of them earlier this month. But we're actually going to put them together for this review because they are basically brothers. They probably slept even in the same bunk beds in the warehouse, in the rick house, which are these Yamazaki 18 and Yamazaki 12. Just look at that. Yeah. That is a beautiful bottle. Now, in general, Yamazaki is one of the most highly sought after Japanese whiskeys out there, especially when it comes to having an age statement on them. They're both produced by Suntory, obviously, because they're both from Yamazaki. And they are considered true, quote unquote, true Japanese whiskey. And the 12 and the 18 kind of fill out those low to mid lines of the Yamazaki lineup. Of course, there are things like Yamazaki 25 and Yamazaki 55, which basically has a market of one person, the Sultan of Brunei, who can afford them, who has the buku bucks to get it. But I don't think that even those were really meant for drinking. These are something that you can get. They are expensive, but they are something you could actually drink and not feel super duper guilty about it. So where the two begin to differ, obviously, is the age. So one is 12 and one is 18, but the age is actually way different than just the simple 6-year difference between the two. Because in both of them, there is whiskey that is aged in ex-bourbon, ex-sherry, and Mizunara casks, but the percentages of what those blends are actually different, and they are also stored differently. They are both 43%, as you can see right here, which is one of the similarities, but another one of the big differences is going to be the price. Because they are pretty far apart. The Yamazaki 12 we got at $137.99, which is definitely feeling that Yamazaki price increase. But Yamazaki 18 we got for $479, both at the Queen's Creek grand opening. And when you start to see these things in the wild, the chasm in the prices begins to get way, way bigger. I mean, on the 18, you can find them on the secondary or in the gray market for $1,000 plus. So either way, Yamazaki 12 and the 18, I think they are going to be a great addition to the overall collection. We already have one of each at least, but it's nice to have them because, well, 12, we actually drink a lot of them. The wife really enjoys the Yamazaki 12. In the 18, I mean, these are super hard to come by, moreover at a reasonable price. So when you can find them, again, at a reasonable price, and reasonable we can differ on, is definitely worth picking up. So those are the Yamazaki 12 and the Yamazaki 18. Now, next up is a whiskey that was not nearly as popular as most of the other whiskeys that we saw and that we picked up at the Costco at Queen's Creek grand opening, which I guess is not a huge surprise. But this is kind of one of the low-key, one of my favorites, at least for the scotches that were available, which is this Lagavulin Distillers Edition 2022. Also, if you want to check it out, we did a full review on the Lagavulin DE 2022. I'll put a link up here for that if you want to kind of get an idea of what it tastes like and what makes it different from the normal Lagavulin 16. So I'll put that up for you all there. But the Lagavulin DE is supposed to be basically a version of Lagavulin that is for the Lagavulin lovers, right? I really think that it was designed to be sort of a counterpoint to the normal Lagavulin 16. This DE, the Distillers Edition, is supposed to be like a Lagavulin 16, but made to the personal taste of the distiller, rather than kind of sticking straight down the baseline for the standard Lagavulin whiskey calculus. So it's a little bit more subtle, it's a little more nuanced, and a little more delicately. So basically, if they took the Expendables, but made it into a show on ice. The price that we did end up finding it at Costco Queen's Creek on the grand opening is at $99.99. And again, I'm not sure that the folks in Arizona were that hyped about it, because only one of them I saw removed, and it was the one that we had grabbed. So, you know, it wasn't exactly selling like hotcakes, but I'm sure glad that we did get it either way. The ABV on it is at 43%, which you can see right there, which again is pretty standard for Lagavulin, and is matured in supercharred American oak barrels, as well as double-barreled in Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. Now, one thing that is noticeably missing from this version of the Lagavulin DE is things like an age statement, like they had in previous years. So I'm not sure what Lagavulin's doing there. I think it was probably a bad move, but I can understand why they would do it. Now, even though I would never dream of replacing the standard Laga 16 with this one, or even consider probably buying another one from this year, because it doesn't have an age statement, it doesn't have a bottle number, it doesn't give me the first name of the guy who poured it out. I like all those things. But I am glad to have this one. And again, I think it is a great comparable to drink next to the standard, to really get a fuller, better understanding of what a Lagavulin could be, what Lagavulin is. And so I'm just really glad to have gotten this one. And next year, they put an age statement on it, might even get it again. So that is the Lagavulin Distillers Edition 2022. All right, for these next two whiskeys are another set of siblings, kind of like what we got with the Yamazaki. But I think these two are my favorite from this month's haul, which are the E.H. Taylor Small Batch, which is a classic go-to, my almost always go-to whiskey, as well as the harder to find, the much more elusive, like Sasquatch of E.H. Taylor, the E.H. Taylor barrel proof, especially at a reasonable price. But in general, the E.H. Taylor is a sort of low-key line out of Buffalo Trace that is, obviously very, very, very recognizable by its yellow silos. But like I said, I think that a lot of people see it on the shelf, they can recognize it on the shelf, but they actually don't end up buying it, especially when it is posted up next to some of the more, we'll call them popular Buffalo Trace whiskeys, things like Blantons or Wellers or, hey, even Eagle Rare. I think oftentimes they get overshadowed by that. But for me, the E.H. Taylors are really one of my favorite gettable Buffalo Traces that you can get. They're not so crazy in the BTAC. I think the Warehouse C might be. But these ones, you can find them out and about, and, they're enjoyable if you can get them. But the barrel proof, well, this is really the first time that I have seen this one in the wild at MSRP, and definitely the first time I've seen actually either of these at Costco. So picking this one up was a pretty big thrill to get. Now, the main differences between the two are the prices, and as well as the ABVs on them. The ABV on the E.H. Taylor small batch is at 50%, as it is a bottle in bond, and you can see that right there. And it uses a small batch of barrels from Buffalo Trace's mash bill number 1, the low rye, meaning that they put together multiple barrels into the mix and then cut them down to 50% ABV to try to maintain that specific consistency of quality and palate profile that they're looking for under the E.H. Taylor line. Now, on the other hand, this E.H. Taylor barrel proof is bottled at the same ABV as the whiskey comes out of the barrel, and you can kind of see it handwritten on there, in fact. This one specifically comes out at 63.65%. And that means 127.3 proof. Don't check my math. And it is batch number 10 from 2021. Another big difference on the two is the price, because they basically differ in price by nearly 100% in cost. Where the E.H. Taylor small batch we saw here at the Costco Queens Creek for $32.99 is what we got it for. The barrel proof we saw at $56.89. So needless to say, the barrel proof is a bourbon that I'm super excited for. Hey, I like the small batch too. I'm excited to have it, but this one's gonna get drank real quick and this one's gonna get sipped on. And I really cannot wait to open up this barrel proof and see how that higher ABV affects the overall E.H. Taylor experience. Hopefully for the better, which I'm assuming. So either way, that is the E.H. Taylor small batch and the E.H. Taylor barrel proof together. Happy to have them a part of the collection. Yeah. All right, so next up is another one of those lines, kind of like Old Forester, that we're still trying to get more on. We're trying to get all the background whiskey to it so we can start to really dive in and enjoy it. But when these pop up at a reasonable price at MSRP, I always try to pick them up when we can, which is this Elijah Craig 18 years old. Also, they are around, so they're not hard to find, really. You can find them kind of at your local mom and pop liquor stores all over the place. So they don't get bought up that quick, but primarily why they're still on the shelf is because they are at astronomically exorbitant prices. But again, at Costco's is when you can start to find them at an MSRP, even though they only seem to come into Costco's at a very, very small amount, and they go super duper quick. The Elijah Craig 18 is, I think, currently the oldest whiskey in production by Elijah Craig. It comes out of distiller Heaven Hill, and all reviews on it really kind of rave about it, especially if you are a fan of a lot of oakiness, which I am. Obviously, it is aged 18 years old. It is matured in American oak barrels, and it's a yearly release. So there are bottle numbers and things like that on here. And in fact, this one specifically was bottled 6/7/2022 and from barrel 5933. I think that's the only one on there. Yeah. It also has a mash bill of 78% corn, 12% malted barley, and 10% rye. The ABV on it, although, is reasonable, is not really that impressive, especially for a bourbon when you start getting 127. But the ABV on this one is at 45%, which you can see right there. But my anticipation for this one is that this one's really going to be all about the palate, really compensating for that lower ABV with a good heaping helping of that oaky barrelness. So, and tannins. I like tannins. So I'm real excited to have the Elijah Craig 18. This is the second one that we got a while back, I think, at another grand opening. So if you like Elijah 18 at MSRP, grand openings might be where you want to go. But that is the Elijah Craig 18. All right, so for these next two are ones that I recently have really started to warm up, at least to the brand, which is from Jack Daniels. In fact, we have the Jack Daniels Single Barrel Select from the Costco Queens Creek. So it was another barrel select by the team at Costco Queens Creek. And then we have the Jack Daniel's Twice Barreled, which undoubtedly seems very, very interesting. Now, Jack Daniel's, at least in my head, is sort of a victim of its own success, especially because of ubiquitousness of its presence, its availability, and its availability at its price point. It sort of gets a bad reputation since the very beginning. And we'll politely call it, it gets a reputation of being a mixing whiskey. But the thing is, it's sort of like getting your first Ford Fiesta in your junior year of high school and then assuming that all the other Ford cars are of the same quality for the rest of your life, all the way up to things like the GT40. But, it's not the case. And it's also not the case with these ones. It's not comparable to the Jack Daniel's 40, at least I hope not. And you actually start to see it with some of these more interesting and kind of like high-end Jack Daniels that are starting to be put out. So first out of the set is going to be this Jack Daniel's single barrel, which has a very cool chain. I like this. It's got like an aural enjoyment too as well. So not just flavor, but a sound that goes with it, which I think is very cool. It's very flavor flavored, by the way. And I think that, the thing that is interesting about this one is that, one, it's a single barrel from Jack Daniel's, chosen by the folks at Queens Creek. Also, it is ABV higher. It's an ABV at 47% ABV, which is considerably higher than what you get with the Lucky Old number 7, which I believe is at 40%. The mash bill on this one is 80% corn, 8% rye, and 12% malted barley. So I think that might actually be the same one. So maybe the big difference is the ABV and the single barrelness. It's run through that Lincoln County process, so it kind of smooths it out, at least according to them. And the bottle is, of course, a single barrel. It's a single barrel select, and you can see that because it has a name tag that says, "Hi, I'm a single barrel select from Queens Creek." Now, I wouldn't call this one allocated because you do kind of see them all over the place at Total Wine and Bevmo, and the local liquor stores have them as well. But they are pretty cool, and I'm interested to see what a single barrel Jack Daniel's tastes like. Now, inversely, and really kind of on a completely different perspective on whiskey from the Jack Daniel's single barrel, is going to be this Jack Daniel's Twice Barrel. Because the single barrel, it really starts to rely on that kind of pure Jack Daniel's whiskey making prowess and desirability and marketing of whiskey, where the Twice Barrel seems to be a little divergent in the sense that it is not the traditional Jack Daniel's whiskey mindset. They're throwing in like all kinds of interesting things to change the aspects of the whiskey and make it more creative and perhaps even more, dare we say, avant-garde. Now, specifically for this Twice Barreled, one interesting thing is that it is a whiskey that is 100% malted barley. So it is a single malt bourbon. Then it is barreled twice, first in charred American oak barrels, and then secondarily in Oloroso sherry casks. So those two things are really going to kind of twist the flavor around a little bit and try to make it into a whole different balloon animal, I guess. At least that's what they hope. Also, one other kind of interesting aspect about this one is that it is bottled in 700 milliliter bottles. So obviously they may think that there's some sort of international appeal to it. It is ABV'd at a very healthy 53.5%. I like that. Now, the prices for both of these were $55.99 for the twice barreled and $38.99 for the single barreled. And again, I'm really glad that we actually got both of these. I think that they are really interesting kind of lines out of Jack Daniel's, maybe even sort of experimental lines out of Jack Daniel's. And I'm really happy to be able to kind of continue to grow our Jack Daniel wing of the collection because I'm really turning a new leaf and ready to give Jack Daniel's an opportunity to prove that it can be a high-end whiskey along with just kind of the everyday mixing whiskey. So those are the Jack Daniel's Twice Barreled and the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel. All right, so last up for today are a pair of bottles that are the same in spirit, but not in size, which are the Blanton's Single Barrel and the Blanton Single Barrel Mini. Now, these last two are probably the most popular whiskeys from the Buffalo Trace family. They are also the most overhyped. And in the case of the Blanton Single Barrel, it is the original Blanton's. It is the original single barrel, and really the pace setter for all bourbon is judged against for the last decade or so. So there isn't a whole lot that needs to be said about Blanton's Single Barrel, but the minis are the ones that really caught my eye this month while we were wandering about. Now, the thing with the minis is that first, obviously, it is much smaller in stature at 50 milliliters, which, when I think about it, would make a great stocking stuffer, or maybe even you could make it an ornament to hang on a Christmas tree if you're into that kind of stuff. But as far as whiskey, it is supposedly the same whiskey as the standard Blantons, although it does lack pretty much any of the documentation that you get on the standard bottle, like the bottle numbers or the barrel numbers or the guy who poured it out. So even though they are both single barrels, at least purportedly, there is no stats on the Mini like there is with the standard. Also, a downside to the Mini is that it doesn't really come with like the fishnets or the bag, and those are all downsides. But on the upside to it, it's Mini. The other downside to it is that they are way, 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 way more expensive per ounce than buying the full size this one. We got this one specifically for $10.99 at the Total Wine in Queens Creek while we were at the Costco Queens Creek grand opening. And they're so small and they're so limited and they're so expensive per ounce. I don't think that I would ever end up drinking this one, really. Now, much like going from the teacup poodle to the standard size poodle, the standard size is obviously more sought after, especially when you can get an MSRP, same as goes with the standard Blantons. Now, the beautiful thing about the standard Blantons is that, there are manyfold, is that first, it comes with the full regalia. You get the bedtime story with the little booklet, you get the letter, you get the fishnets, and you get all the barrel information. So, for example, this one specifically was dumped on 11/23/2022. It is barrel number 3962, which you can see there, at 93 proof, of course. And it is bottle number 47. And the guy who dumped it, his name was Jeff. So you get all that stuff. But also the fact that we were able to find it at the Queens Creek Costco. So this one was Total Wine and this one was at Queens Creek Costco. We got it for $47.99, which, at that price, it's just kind of dumb to pass it up. So picking these up were pretty self-explanatory, right? The Blanton's standard size was a great whiskey that is hard to find at a great price. And the Blanton's Mini is a great whiskey at a really bad price, but, it's Mini. All right, so that's it for today's haul for the month of May. And, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you enjoy all the videos, whether it is the wanders or the hauls or the reviews or the unbottlings or the unboxings, and really just all the amazing stuff we got cooking up for you, because we have tons and tons of stuff cooking up for you. And if you do like those things, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, because it does obviously help the channel to grow. And again, super thankful for that. That is, we're really thankful for that. But also, it pleases the whiskey gods. I like to think that it is good for your whiskey mojo. You might get a little whiskey luck there. And also, you get notifications when our newest videos come out on Sundays and sometimes in between. Now, before I go, just remember, if you do find a whiskey that you love, just buy it. Because if you don't, somebody else surely will. And in this case, it might even be me. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your week. I'm out, and adios.